Man's search for meaning. Where do the boundaries of the human spirit begin and end? How much pain can we endure to survive? These questions have been debated throughout human history, yet the most brutal and most genuine answers to these questions were found on the frozen ground of the Nazi concentration camps. In 1942, Dr. Viktor Emil Frankl, a young and successful neurologist and psychiatrist from Vienna, was sent, along with his family and wife, on the most horrific ordeal of his life. When he arrived at the gates of Auschwitz, along with hundreds of other people in locked train cars who had no idea where they were being taken, he was forced to leave his entire humanity behind. From the moment he set foot in the camps, Frankl was not merely a prisoner struggling to survive. He was also a scientific observer, examining human behavior at its most extreme. During the 3 years he spent in the camp, he endured starvation, freezing cold, typhus epidemics, systematic beatings, and the fear of the gas chambers. His mother, father, brother, and pregnant wife all lost their lives in these camps. Yet as everything around him crumbled, Frankl discovered one final freedom that could never be taken away from a person: the freedom to choose one's own attitude. Today, we will explore Viktor Frankl's philosophy, which he distilled from this hellish experience and which has transformed the lives of millions, as well as logotherapy and the human quest for meaning through our own unique perspective. Now, let's discover together that unshakable why that will keep us standing even in the most hopeless moments. Viktor Frankl divides the psychological changes a person undergoes when entering an extremely traumatic environment, such as a concentration camp, into 3 main stages. Of course, I will illustrate this using experiences from a concentration camp, but you can substitute any other major traumatic situation here. These 3 main stages are in fact universal prototypes of the reactions modern humans exhibit in the face of major crises and losses. Stage 1: Acceptance and shock. The first emotion experienced by every prisoner entering the camp gates is a state of intense shock. Frankl observes a defense mechanism at this stage, known in psychiatry as the illusion of forgiveness. The unrealistic belief that the execution will be called off at the very last second, a belief held by a prisoner facing execution, is also seen among the prisoners. Thoughts like, "They won't treat us that badly," attempt to shield the mind from the initial blow. When reality hits them, this illusion gives way to deep horror. The prisoners are completely stripped of their identity by having their heads shaved and numbers tattooed on their arms in place of their names. At this stage, the fear of death becomes so normalized that people even begin to lose their fear of the gas chambers. Frankl learns the first rule of survival in this brutal system: don't stand out, shave every day to look clean, and walk upright. Because a prisoner who looks clean-shaven and fit is considered capable of working and can avoid the gas chamber line. Stage 2: Apathy and emotional numbness, indifference and insensitivity. As weeks pass since arrival at the camp, the shock phase gives way to deep apathy, that is, emotional numbness. Apathy is the strongest protective shield the human mind develops against unbearable pain. It acts as a kind of anesthesia. Eyes that once watched in horror as a fellow prisoner was whipped eventually come to observe these scenes without feeling a thing. Frankl describes this state as mental numbness. The prisoners are now focused solely on physical survival. Their minds have retreated to the most basic physical needs, such as bread or a cigarette. At this stage, the greatest suffering stems not from physical blows, but from the mental anguish and humiliation caused by injustice. Crushed under the weight of their circumstances, the prisoners are virtually transformed into robots. Yet even in the midst of this emotional death, we see that some people manage to preserve their inner worlds and deepen their spirituality. Stage 3: The shock of liberation, depersonalization. Many prisoners imagine that when freedom comes, everything will suddenly be a bed of roses. However, Frankl says that the day of liberation also brings its own unique psychological crises. When the camp is evacuated and the prisoners are set free, they feel nothing for a long time. This is called depersonalization, alienation from oneself. They may see the beauty of the flowers and gaze at the deep blue sky, but not even the slightest joy stirs within them. Their minds have been under such heavy pressure for so many years that they cannot grasp freedom all at once. Over time, their bodies accept freedom faster than their minds do. They begin to eat with ravenous appetites, However, mental recovery takes place much more slowly. Some prisoners, after gaining their freedom, show a tendency to harm others due to the anger that has built up inside them, while others experience deep disappointment upon returning to find that nothing they left behind remains. Viktor Frankl's observations confirm one of the most striking theories put forward by modern medicine and psychology regarding the mind-body connection. When a person's faith in the future is gone, their physical body also gives up the fight. Survival rates in the camp were directly related not to who was more muscular, but to who harbored an unshakable hope for the future. One of the most concrete and tragic examples of this is the story of Felix, Frankl's friend in the camp. In February 1945, Felix told Frankl that he had heard a mysterious voice in a dream. This voice told him he was entitled to a wish, so Felix asked when they would be freed from the camp. The mysterious voice gave him a specific date, March 30th. Felix clung to this date with unshakable faith. However, the course of the war made it clear that freedom would not come on that date. On March 29th, he suddenly fell ill and was confined to bed with a high fever. By March 30th, the promised day of liberation, he had lost consciousness. On March 31st, he passed away. The medical cause of death was typhus. However, Frankl notes that the real cause was the sudden loss of faith in the future and of hope. When his expectations collapsed, Felix's immune system also collapsed, and his body lost all resistance to the typhus infection. The camp's chief medical officer also noted a similar medical phenomenon. Between Christmas 1944 and New Year's 1945, there was a sudden spike in the death rate. The chief medical officer and Frankl realized the truth behind the situation. The prisoners had harbored a blind hope that they would be home by Christmas. When Christmas came and the gates did not open, the bubble of false hope burst, their faith vanished, and their bodies succumbed to death. These dramatic observations confirmed Nietzsche's unshakable statement: "A man who has a why to live for can endure almost any how." Those who had a mission for the future or a child to return to were the ones who endured the longest in the camp, no matter how weak they were. After surviving the camp, Viktor Frankl framed all his experiences within a scientific framework and founded the school of logotherapy, therapy through meaning. According to logotherapy, the fundamental human drive is not pleasure, Freud, or power, Adler, but finding meaning in life. Frankl argues that the meaning of life is a dynamic structure that can change every day, every hour, and that each individual must discover their own meaning. And he presents us with three major wells of meaning. 1. The well of creation, creating and producing a work. The first way to find meaning is to actively contribute something to the world. This could be writing a book, creating a project, or helping someone. When Frankl entered the camp, the great scientific manuscript to which he had devoted his entire adult life was destroyed. The greatest why that kept him going was his desire to rewrite that manuscript and bring it to the world. Even during his bouts of typhus, he tried to construct his book in his mind by jotting down short notes on scraps of paper he gathered from the trash. He knew that if he died, that body of work would be lost forever along with him. Frankl believes that each of us has a unique mission in life that can only be fulfilled by us. And I, too, wholeheartedly believe this. 2. The well of experience, loving, connecting with nature and art. The second path is to find meaning through profound experiences. Witnessing the unique beauty of a sunset or loving another person in all their uniqueness is part of this well. On a freezing winter morning, while being taken to break rocks, he experiences a moment of clarity when his friend, "I wonder what our spouses would say if they saw us now." The face of his wife, whose fate he didn't know, flashes before his eyes. He begins to speak to her and realizes, love is the highest and purest goal a person can attain. Another day, as they return to the barracks after hard labor, a prisoner calls the others outside. Outside, they witness a magnificent sunset where shades of pink and orange dance across the sky. In the midst of their misery, the prisoners look up at the sky and, how beautiful the world can be. This is the well of experience, windows that open onto beauty and love even in the darkest moments. 3. The well of attitude, transforming pain into a dignified stance. The third and most challenging path is the attitude we adopt in the face of inevitable suffering. Life sometimes takes everything away from us and leaves us helpless. It was no longer meaningless suffering, but an honorable sacrifice made for a loved one. The moment pain finds meaning, it ceases to be pain. In today's modern world, we are not subjected to physical torture like those in concentration camps. People are at a loss as to what to do. Their instincts don't tell them what to do, and their traditions don't dictate what they should do. As a result, people either do what others do, conformism, or do what others want them to do, totalitarianism. This existential vacuum manifests itself most clearly during moments of boredom known as Sunday blues. In the silence that follows the work week, people are forced to confront the deep void within themselves. To fill this void, they turn to consumption, social media, instant gratification, or addictions. When we try to fill the void with external stimuli, an even greater sense of hopelessness takes hold of us. Frankl reminds us that we must ask what life expects of us. We must stop asking what we expect from life and start asking what life expects from us. Life presents us with unique tasks that must be resolved, and our duty is to respond with responsibility. Huberman and Friedman's analyses of Frankl's philosophy reveal one of the most astonishing characteristics of mental capacity: the ability to mentally bend time and space. Even when the outside world is restricted and the scope of movement is reduced to a tiny cell, the human mind can break down the perception of time into microscopic fragments. Prisoners have compressed time so much in order to survive that they have derived meaning from micro-moments, such as getting through the next 5 minutes or taking the next step. This is an extraordinary survival algorithm of the mind. Conversely, it is sometimes possible to transcend pain by expanding the mind as far as possible. In his most unbearable moments, Frankl would imagine himself in the future, in a well-lit conference hall. He would visualize himself lecturing from the podium on the psychology of the camps. In this way, he transformed the torture he was enduring into an object of scientific observation, rising above his pain and finding freedom. Frankl's teachings have served as a guiding star for people around the world, even in their most hopeless moments. One of the greatest examples of this is Nick Vujicic, who was born without any limbs. The absence of his arms and legs seemed to limit everything he could physically do in this world. However, much like Frankl's philosophy, Vujicic discovered the power of attitude rather than focusing on his disabilities. He transformed his situation into a tool to inspire people around the world and teach resilience. Another striking story is that of a young man in India who was born blind and abandoned by his family. Raised in orphanages and on the brink of suicide, this young man read Man's Search for Meaning in Braille. And he reflected, if Viktor Frankl could find a meaning that allowed him to survive Auschwitz, then I, too, can find a meaning that will take me beyond my blindness in this dark world. Today, that young man has become a speaker in India who teaches blind children to read and write, serving as a beacon of light for them. He has transformed his own pain into a gift to ease the suffering of others. Life sometimes leaves us in the midst of storms, but even in the midst of that storm, it is entirely up to us to decide how we will stand against the wind and which direction we will look. We elaborated on this in the Surrender video. Frankl's legacy to the world is this: there is a space between stimulus and response. In that space lies our freedom to choose our response. In that choice lies our growth and our freedom. No matter how exhausted you feel in your life, don't forget that meaning is there, waiting to be discovered. Perhaps life is asking you today to be patient, perhaps to reach out to someone, or perhaps to accept pain with dignified silence. Every day is a new page, every moment a new choice. You are the author of your life, and that pen is in your hand. Now ask yourself this question: how will you answer that big question life is asking you today? Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.